Hi, my name is Ramson, and welcome to TAG, Time Alone with God. Have you ever considered how plain and simple sometimes our lives could feel, and the decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis? You wake up, put on your clothes, or hopefully you take a shower first, then put on your clothes, go to work, whether it's driving, walking, taking a matatu. Then you get to work, say hi to the guards maybe, go into your office, take a seat, get maybe some tea, and you go on with your work. You fill in documents. Sometimes for some of us, our work is quite repetitive. And you go about life making decisions. And sometimes the temptation is to feel like, you know what? My life is so plain and simple. Nothing much happens in it. You can even test this by asking yourselves, can you remember the details of last week and how your full week went through? If somebody asked you, how was your week? Do you sometimes even struggle to remember what happened? And you feel like, it was just there. Nothing much happened in it. It was just my week. Nothing to be excited about. Well, today I hope to challenge you to think through and see as each day, each decision, and each thing that happens in your life and the actions that you take are actually quite significant. But to do this, I want us to go to a story in the Bible. A story that many of us know about it. This is the story of Ruth. And the family of Naomi, which sometimes checks out of the story quite fast. I think of the number of decisions that are made in that book. You think of the husband to Naomi, talking to his family and saying, this area, Judah, as Bethlehem as we are, we're facing challenges. There's drought, and we need to find food. So what a simple decision and an ordinary and plain decision to say, you know what, let's go to the land of Moab so that there we can find sustenance and we can find food for ourselves. And then you think of the decisions by his children to decide to get a wife. I don't think they went and consulted, an ephod or a priest or a prophet. Chances are they made decisions in the same way that we do day and day. You meet a girl, get smitten by her. Sometimes you decide to get her number and maybe you approach her and you guys have a conversation and maybe she likes you back and you decide someday we want to get married. And maybe this is how Naomi's children ended up getting married. Simple, plain, day-to-day decisions. And suddenly, in the story, Naomi loses her husband, Naomi loses her 2 sons. Decision, another decision. Back home, people are doing better. Things are going on well. She decides, I'm now going back to my people. And in the process, Ruth decides she will stick by her no matter what. And so they go back, and another simple decision is made. We need to eat. So what does Ruth decide to do? I will use the principle that was given to this community where people are allowed to come and glean and gather on the sides and some of the things that have fallen as harvest is being made of the barley, the wheat, and the farms. And so she decides, I'll ask Naomi and tell her, allow me to please go and thresh and go and glean from the farms. Let me go and work and get something for our sustenance. A simple decision and plain one, simply trying to sustain themselves. They meet with Boaz and later on they get married. Simple cultural decision actually, you could think like a procedure, a ratio procedure maybe. And finally they are married, and then the Bible makes some statements that are really big and something to think about. It mentions how Naomi's daughter-in-law, Ruth, marries Boaz, and how they get their children, and how finally, from that lineage, David comes to be. It would have been, if you talked to Ruth, I doubt she would have been thinking of how she was going to be the great-great-grandmother of this great king that all of Israel will be remembering. I doubt she would think about, this is the king whom, it will be said of him that he was a man after God's own heart. She wouldn't be in a position to say that, God will make a promise to her great-grandchildren and tell him that I will build a kingdom from you. She wouldn't be in a position to say, generations of Israelites will always be thinking of the one who will come in the lineage of David and who will restore all of Israel. How Israelites would look forward to the coming of the Messiah. How people would always think, he has to come from the lineage of David. And Ruth wouldn't be able to tell you that centuries later, a man by the name of Luke will be writing a book and will make sure to include her name as part of the lineage of David. Yet, simple, day-to-day, ordinary decisions were made that led to that eventuality. My encouragement to you today, as you go about your day, and sometimes your day that looks plain and simple, remember this: your day is a handiwork in the hand of God. God is working in all these things to ensure that your life will turn out in the way that He desires it to turn out. God is at work in your life, just in the same way He was in the life of Naomi and Ruth, managing it and running it like as a course turns the river, to ensure that His son will come from that lineage. Both the good and the bad, God is at work. And if you ever feel like you forget this, let me turn your attention to the book of Acts, where Paul reminds us of a simple way in which this is true. And that is in Acts chapter 19. And this is from verse 24. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands. And He is not served by human hands as if He needed anything, because He Himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. From one man He made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and He determined the time set for them and the exact places they should live. Guess what? God has already determined the exact places that you should live. God has already thought through that, He decided, I want you to be born at a time when, there would be nations, there would be technology, there would be all these things. And for all these reasons, God is at work in your life. So as you make your ordinary day-to-day decisions, remember, God, the maker of heaven and earth, who cannot be served by human beings as if He needed anything, is at work in your life, orchestrating it for His own good and glory. So be encouraged. You're not living an ordinary day. You're living a day in the hand of God. This is Ramson Chebosi for TAG. See you next week.